And now we have a special message from our guest, Rabbi Dovid Goldwasser from New York.
Shalom, Rabbi Glazer. What a great simcha it is for all of us to be together at such a special occasion.
What is your opinion of the main message of Chanukah?
It's an excellent question. We know that Chanukah is a celebration of the great rededication of the Beis HaMikdash of the Holy Temple. It took place, of course, surrounding the miracle of that one pach shemen, of the flask of oil. How wonderful it was that that little bit of oil lasted b'kedusha b'tahara, with great purity and holiness, for 8 days until new oil could be brought to the Beis HaMikdash. We know that the Chanukah Menorah was a very special vessel in the Beis HaMikdash. We learn that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that was in charge of making sure that all of the kelim, all of the various vessels were in place. There were many different vessels. The menorah was one. However, we learn that Moshe Rabbeinu could not grasp, he could not understand how the menorah was supposed to be made. It was difficult for him until finally Hashem had to tell Moshe Rabbeinu, take the gold, throw it into the fire, and then the menorah emerged by itself. The Chofetz Chaim asked the question, why is it that some of the other kelim, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to understand? The shulchan, the table, the aron. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu know how to do those? But when it came time for the menorah, he couldn't comprehend it, he couldn't understand it. The truth is that the aron represents the greatness of Torah, symbolic of the wisdom of Torah, of prophecy. We also know that the shulchan is symbolic. It alludes to parnasa, livelihood for all of us, also for food. Food has its source in the higher realms. Heavenly eating, for instance, eating on Shabbos, eating on Yom Tov, eating with a bracha, with a special blessing. That's a greatness. They're all great, all the kelim. But why is it that the menorah presented this great difficulty to Moshe? The Chofetz Chaim says, because the menorah represented nitzchius, eternity, the fact that the Jew is eternal. Moshe Rabbeinu was shown every generation. Moshe Rabbeinu was shown the Inquisition. Moshe Rabbeinu was shown, unfortunately, the Crusades, and then Siberia, in all the places where the Yidden, the Jewish people, are going to be persecuted, in Iran and in Syria, and in all different places that we were going to be expelled from Spain, and all the various things that we went through. Finally, the Holocaust, and then the terrorists, and then those wars against the Holy Land, and all that Khal Yisrael was going to have to endure. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, I can't understand it. How will it be possible that the Jew will survive? I can't comprehend it. Through all of that, through all the trials and tribulations, through all the persecutions, through all the slaughter, through all the blood that's going to be spilled, it's an impossibility. Hashem said, I will explain it. Take the gold, throw it into the fire, and the menorah emerged. Moshe Rabbeinu was taught a very valuable lesson, that it's going to be the fire that's going to refine the gold. It's going to be the fire that will perfect the gold. It's going to be the fire that's going to produce the gold. No matter how many times we were threatened, no matter how many times Khal Yisrael's existence was on shaky ground, we always emerged victorious. We always emerged stronger than before. We went from the Holocaust. We marched from the ashes. We went and built up Eretz Yisrael. We went all over the world and built up all the things that were destroyed, the great yeshivas and the great centers. All of it was rebuilt. We emerged a stronger people. It was going to be the fire that was going to cause us to become even greater. And that was the lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu was taught by Hashem Yisbarach. How interesting it is that Aaron HaKohen, Aaron, he complained. Why did he complain? Because all the Nesiim had a special part. They had special korbanos, special sacrifices that they took part in. However, his shevet and he himself did not have a part. He said to Hashem, why are we left out? Why don't we also have this? Hashem said, I will give you something that is even greater, something that will always be around. You will light the menorah. You will have that privilege. The Mefarshim asks the question. We know that just like the korbanos, they stopped when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So too, the menorah was no longer lit. The Ramban tells us something very enlightening. It was talking about the Chanukah menorah, the Chanukah menorah that would continue, the Chanukah that we would all continue to light for all the years, in the worst times and in the best times. That menorah that will continue to light ad bias goel, until the Redeemer will come. Aaron HaKohen was shown that that is the nitzchius, that that is the eternity that we're all a part of, and that Aaron would have a special chelik in the lighting of that menorah. How unbelievable it is when we go to light the Chanukah menorah, we realize it's just not lighting the menorah for today. It is lighting the light of Torah that has been in existence from the beginning of time, even before. It's the light of Torah that will continue to shine through our life. It's the light of Torah that Hidabroot spreads on every continent in such a special way, bringing everybody closer, Laviem Shabbat Shamayim, to their Father in heaven. That's what we celebrate when we light the menorah. Avraham Avinu said when he was about to go to the Akedah, to the sacrificing of Yitzchok, of Isaac, Va'ani va'anar nelcho ad ko. I and the young man will go until there. What does that mean? The great Skalena Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, said, Avram Avinu was saying, Va'ani va'anar nelcho ad ko. I and the young man, we're now going to do Akedas Yitzchok, the greatest sacrifice that anyone has ever been called on to do, the sacrifice of his own son. That inspiration, that rosham, that impression will be for all times, ad ko, until the 25th of Kislev, until the menorah is lit. From that point on, until Bias Mashiach, until Mashiach will come, it will be the light of menorah that will continue to shine the way for you and I. It was a few years ago in Eretz Yisrael. There was an international gathering of Holocaust survivors, of Sheres HaPleita Yidden. They all gathered together for the very first time. Many people that were pulled apart during the Holocaust, that were sent to different places after the Holocaust was over. They found each other for the first time. Best friends were united. Cousins were united. Uncles and aunts and people that had not seen each other for years and decades finally saw each other. Each day, it was unbelievable. The emotions ran so high. The crying and the laughing and the dancing and the singing was something otherworldly. And there were sessions that were held every day. On the very last night of the international gathering of Holocaust survivors, it was a special program. It took place in a huge stadium. All the survivors were together. The last part of the program were going to be individual survivors that were going to tell over stories of gvura, of great might, stories of people that stood up to the challenge, stories of people that were able to show superhuman koach, power and strength in the face of the greatest adversity, in the face of the greatest challenge. The last speaker, the last night, the last person to talk at the international gathering was a woman. She went up to the stage and the spotlight was on her. And she began to talk about her experience as an inmate in Auschwitz. She said that there was one night, freezing cold night. Everybody was trying to sleep inside. In the middle of the night, they heard the whistle. The Nazis, Yamach Shemam V'Zichron, began to sound off the whistle, and everybody knew as soon as that whistle sounded, everybody had to go outside for lineup and stand straight, even though they had thin garments on in the freezing cold winter temperatures. Each of them were freezing, but they had to stand straight. A Nazi commandant came, walked down the line of all the women, and each one he would hurl an insult. Each one he would try to debase and degrade. That's how he got his great excitement and happiness. Well, there was one woman that he began to insult. And in fact, he began to insult the entire Jewish people. She couldn't take it. She couldn't stand there and listen. She gathered the spit in her mouth and spit directly onto the face of the Nazi commandant. Immediately, they blew the whistle. The dogs came, the siren went off. They dragged her away, never to be seen again. That was Gevurah. With that, the spotlight was turned off. The international gathering was over, maybe the only time that would happen in this world. And everyone was then to go home. All of a sudden, there was a scream, a shriek. The lights went up. The woman who had just spoken was standing, staring into the face of the woman that spit into the face of the Nazi commandant. That's the nitzchias of Khal Yisrael. That's the eternity of the Jewish people. That's the Chanukah miracle.